Adam Williams, and you are listening to Retail Redeveloped. I'm so excited you could join me today. I have a very special interview taking place in a rainy, nasty Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, I am joined by one Julianne McCollum, and her title is an interesting one. She is the head quack or principal for Yellow Duck Marketing. If you guys have not heard of Yellow Duck, I'll obviously let her kind of tell the whole story, but I run across her company very, very often. She does a tremendous amount of work with real estate professionals and developers, and that is how we got to know one another. And I would like Julianne to just introduce herself, explain how she got to be the head quack at Yellow Duck Marketing, and just talk a little bit about how you got into the business and how you're sitting in the chair you are.
Okay. Nice to be here, Adam. Thank you for having me. I started Yellow Duck Marketing 8.5 years ago. I had previously been in the commercial real estate space, so that's why you've come across us in a number of different real estate capacities. I was brought to Charlotte by Faison, who, as you know, probably they were really active in the regional mall space. But yes, it was an interesting period to be in shopping center marketing, especially because the malls were dying, and obviously there's been a number of different retail generations of space. Since then, we've had to adapt, right, to lifestyle centers, and then now to more urban retail. So it's been interesting. I've been in the game a while. Faison was acquired by Trammell Crow, and then I shortly thereafter left and was at Crosland for 11 years and oversaw the marketing, communications, market research, because I actually started in market research and consumer behavior, and the technology group, so web design as well as IT.
So when did you finally decide to make the jump and start Yellow Duck? Walk me through that.
Well, as you know, things changed a lot in 2008 and 2009. Things started getting a little hairy in the business, and but I actually didn't leave until 2011, and that's when a number of different departments kind of spun off into their own firms, and I had always planned on starting my own business, but I didn't know exactly when I was going to, and that was a perfect opportunity to do so, because I had a couple coworkers start their own businesses. They all needed PR, branding, websites, and so I had kind of a number of new clients all built in at the time. So I wanted to, still work with people I liked and fulfill my dream as well.
That's exciting. So tell everybody, if you had to give like that 10-second commercial of what Yellow Duck is and does and quacks about, like what would your elevator speech be in case somebody's listening to this and is wants to understand really what you guys do?
Well, we create value, especially for owners and asset managers, by creating brands and communication tools and building buzz for great spaces and places. And we do that. We're a full service marketing firm, but niche, obviously, in real estate for municipalities and for nonprofits, because the work that we do, I believe, is really a vehicle for giving back to the community. And we take that responsibility very seriously. And, we do a tremendous amount of work for, pro bono for nonprofits, as well as
that is not for the real estate developers. The developers are getting no pro bono. Or helpless real estate developers, man. Nobody cares about us.
We've unfortunately, we've seen a bankruptcy or two, but no, we also help developers in a way create better spaces for the community as well. So we're excited about our role and how we give back and help make this city and beyond. We do work across the country a better place.
So when a developer comes to you, let's stay in the real estate developer world since that's the one that I'm comfortable in and can sound halfway educated about. When a developer comes to you, what are the common, like, check the box, like just sign your name on the SATs version of things that they're doing wrong or they're not thinking about that you would say, hey guys, like instantly this is how you can be a little bit better or how you can instantly help a developer, because every developer thinks they're the smartest guy in the room, right? Like what do you see over and over that you can very, very quickly help these guys with?
Well, I think one of the mistakes that is often made is that we get to the table too late. So bringing us in earlier does help with maybe entitlements, engaging the community, hearing concerns. One of our most important roles is a listener or translator, especially during entitlements process of any kind of contentious rezoning, that sort of thing. But also, even if it's not contentious, hearing what the community wants and needs, and maybe that's not specific tenants because everyone wants a Lululemon, right? It's, they're clamoring for this category of restaurant or something like that. We did a lot of research for Waverly before it was built, and that kind of helped devise a leasing plan for the leasing team. So it was a check the box activity and it was great. So engaging us earlier, we could help with, obviously the leasing plan, but also creating the space. So we've done focus groups or online research or community conversations about what people want, for both shopping centers, mixed-use centers, as well as on the municipal side, just general community conversations about affordable housing and retail and how to promote businesses. It's interesting. So the other mistake is just hey, can you just make this pretty? I'll tell you exactly what to say. Just make it pretty. And sometimes that doesn't tell the whole story. And, there are a lot of designers out there and frankly, probably cheaper than us. But, do you have the message right? And do you understand the why of what you're doing? And are you able to convey it?
So your scope of services could go anywhere from marketing to design to brand decks to identity to, I guess it's an a la carte menu that can be pretty extensive.
That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Where would you say a developer's money is best spent? Like if you were going to say, hey, obviously you want to be in from the ground floor, you want to be in for the whole thing, but where you've seen yourself add just an incredible amount of value, what would that piece be?
Oh, that's a lot of pressure. I mean,
you can't see it, have a spotlight on it right now. It's very intense.
Who do you work for? No, I'm not calling you the Gestapo. I just promise. I mean, it's tough because I look at Waverly is a really good example of some of the success that we've had, but it's been a 5-year journey, from the entitlements and PR process, talking with the community, doing the research, developing the name and brand, and now we're kind of seeing it through consumers really enjoying this space and going to events and continuing to promote and communicate, everything that's going on there. So it really does kind of take all of our services together. But, I think, like I said, there are a lot of capable firms out there that can do, just design or just social media. I think where we help create the most value is envisioning the place from the beginning and kind of communicating that to the community.
So that makes me want to ask 2 questions. One is more marketing centric and one is more retail centric. On the marketing side, marketing has changed so much in the past, 3 years, much less 10 years. Like what has been the biggest change or the biggest like value add change that you've seen in the last 5-10 years when it comes to marketing? Like we were just talking about how getting a mention in Charlotte Agenda, for example, which didn't exist, 7 years ago. I don't know exactly when Ted and those guys got started, but when that started as opposed to now. Or Instagram didn't exist, 10 years ago, whereas now an Instagrammable moment is something I hear talked about in every design meeting I'm in. So what have you seen kind of change? Walk me through kind of what paradigm shift there's been, or what you wouldn't have thought about then, but now is critical.
I mean, obviously, everyone talks about social media. The good thing for shopping centers is that they can communicate everything that's going on from new tenants or eventing in a very targeted way, which helps budgets. So you don't have to do direct mail that you would have had to do 15 years ago. You can just geo-target, all of your announcements. And so it makes things a lot more efficient on the budget.
Walk people through geo-targeting.
Well, you can boost a post or an event, say on Facebook or Instagram, by zip code, or within a certain radius of a shopping center or property. So it makes you can also filter by interests or professions. So the ad targeting is really, really efficient. So you just need to know how to do it.
Very cool. It's changed so much. So my second part of that question is in retail specifically. So Waverly, I think, is a very interesting example of how things have changed. So if you take Waverly versus Birkdale, right,
which I worked on too.
Right.
Yeah,
I figured that. It's a Crosland connection for the non-real estate geeks listening. Very, very different. Couldn't be more different from a initial merchandising and tenant outlay. I would love to hear your take on how retail has changed. And I'm talking for those of you who don't know, Waverly is a large lifestyle center, Whole Food anchor at the corner of 45 and Providence, roughly. It was developed by Peter Pappas and Childress Klein.
Yeah, Crosland Southeast, to be specific, and Childress Klein. Mm-hmm.
And now Lincoln Harris and Barings Bank have developed Ray Farms right across the street. So it's gone from, dove hunting land to, a massive retail area for the people that live on that side of 45. How have you seen retail change? Because it feels like a very different conversation than when I saw Birkdale first announced.
Well, and actually the first project I worked on was Eastland Mall. So R.I.P.
Oh, R.I.P. Eastland. I'll never forget your ice skating nor your arcade. A lot of formidable years were spent there. Yeah, Structure Clothing. Shout out to Structure Clothing.
Wow. I haven't thought about that brand in a long time.
It's been a minute. I still might have a T-shirt somewhere.
Well, I love the Eastland T-shirts that are going around. My husband has one.
I definitely own one. It's good. Baby blue.
Yeah, I mean, it's changed a lot. I think retail is the most expensive and difficult to adapt to new consumer trends. But, the mall died in large part due to people wanting a quick in and out, because lives have gotten so much busier and so much more hectic. So people want a more efficient way to shop. So the outdoor and lifestyle centers make it easier because you can kind of park near where you're wanting to go, and there's good co-tenanting and all that stuff. Urban retail now, as there's also a lot of ancillary retail where it might not necessarily be around a ton of other retailers like it, but it's more accessible to your work or to light rail or something like that. But that poses its own challenges with parking and, not having maybe, a central green to host events. And so the big challenge that I think developers always need to answer is, how do you get people to stay? What will make someone want to stay longer and spend more money?
So when you look at these different types of retail, what is it about a brand? Now, this can be a clothing brand, this can be a restaurant, this could be a development, right? This could be a Waverly. What gets you excited? What do you see and say these guys have done their homework? Like, what are those telltale signs that show you that they know what they're talking about, or they spent money with a group like you? Or what do you see that you're just like, oh man, like these guys totally missed? Like when I walk into a retail shop or I walk into a restaurant, I can tell you very, very quickly, and it drives the people that I, hang out with crazy because I kind of nerd out and ruin the experience every once in a while. But I can tell if there's steps of service at a restaurant. Like I can tell if the guy that owned the restaurant used to work at a corporate institution and had steps of service drilled into him, because I was greeted within X number of time. I don't have somebody holding my water cup by where my lips are going to go when they hand it to me. Like there's just things that I know immediately that I'm like, oh. So what are some things like that from kind of a branding perspective that you either love or hate?
And I'm definitely not talking necessarily about Waverly. We were talking about
don't
that
throw
project.
anybody under the bus.
I don't. I mean, I think when I see there's a lot of attention paid to outdoor space and seating and landscaping and articulation of windows and how deep the balconies are, or awnings are. Is there interesting masonry done, and are the planters also the right height to be able to sit on, and it's additional seating for if you get an ice cream or something like that. Also wayfinding. Yeah.
That was mine. You took mine.
Wayfinding is so important. And
tell people what wayfinding is.
Yes, basically routing people to where they want to go and telling people where within a center they should park, or where a certain tenant is. And that is a very common mistake that a lot of people do. And it's an expensive, unfortunately, it's an expensive proposition to do it well. But if you do it, especially if you have more of an urban center and you can use paint in a parking deck, it can be done much more efficiently. But when you have a large center, it's definitely expensive, and doing really cool branded signs can really add to both the user experience to make things easier on people, as well as set the tone.
Yeah, and I think setting the tone is something that is so underutilized and underthought about in retail. In my world, I do a lot of mixed use because I do a lot of urban stuff. So if you owned a skyscraper or a apartment complex or something like that and wanted to make the ground floor cool and hip, how do you do that? How do you amenitize? How do you kind of set the tone for the rest of the building, even though my piece of the building might only be 2% of the building, right? 3% of the building, it's the front door.
Yeah.
And what you said about getting involved early, I feel the same way. Like I want to nerd out with a developer when they're still sketching on a napkin. And once the building's up, like I'm kind of out in the cold. I can only add so much value. So when you're talking about kind of getting in, seeing how the sausage is made early on, that's something that I very much identify with.
Yeah, and we definitely have opinions on that, but very often we're not at the table, and so we can't add our expertise to that. So that's appreciated. I will say, one project recently that I think did it well, and we were not involved in, so this is not self-serving, but the Beacons project on Moorhead, I love what they did on the garage level, with the paint and the wayfinding and decoration.
Yeah, Beacon takes that type of aesthetic pretty seriously. I mean, if anybody's been to the rail yard, like you can love it or you can hate it, but they freaking went for it. Like that is, they had a target in mind for what they wanted that thing to feel, taste, smell like, and they went all in. I toured it with a capital group the other day, and I'd seen it and I'd walked it, but now that it's done, if you haven't been over there to check it out and like kind of industrial design or like throwback industrial design, taking a brand new project and making it or attempting to make it kind of feel like it's been there for 100 years, that was pretty wild.
Yeah, I think Rail Yard was done really well as Refinery.
Yeah, the refinery's cool too. It's so exciting to be. Anybody listening to this not from Charlotte, I apologize because this is definitely like a Charlotte Homer episode.
Sorry.
No. Come on, I can do this. I can do this all day. It's so exciting to see. I'm in South End in particular. The converging of Class A office with these old brick and beam buildings. You obviously have a lot of people upset at the densification of South End, the changing of surface parking to structured parking. I mean, there's a lot of kind of eggs getting broken in that omelet, but I would say that South End is the most exciting city in a 3-state area, or part of a city in a pretty big swath of land. And I tell a lot of people in my business that like you have to take South End and use a completely different lens than the rest of the city. Like it's its own thing. And like our conventional metrics of how we value real estate just shouldn't apply there. It's crazy. Are you working on anything fun over in that part of town that you can talk about? I know some of it's very top secret.
Well, obviously we're talking. We were talking earlier about Spectrum. So the Vantage project, Vantage South End at Carson and Tryon, we're working on, and then a smaller project down closer to Loso on a limited basis.
That's a new thing, guys. Loso.
Yes.
Got to look it up. Lower South End. Didn't
It's
exist.
not so new, Adam.
Didn't exist 30 seconds ago, but it's a thing now. I'm just kidding. It's fine. Lower South End is very cool. There's a lot of. I mean, you've got to be creative. You've got to go down there if you want a big swath of property now. Latest development was 1.4 acre site just traded last week in the heart of South End, and just announced a 300,000 square foot building that they're cramming onto half of the site. So if you want a more conventional site, you've got to go to Loso. You've got to go to these other areas. So what I'm going to ask you kind of a similar question, asking it a little different way. Other than hiring you as soon as you even think about getting into the real estate business, right? That's number one. You should do that first. But what if you had to tell a real estate developer or somebody looking to get into the business about how marketing itself, maybe not you, how marketing can be a critical portion of a potential development, a potential project, a potential piece of real estate business, like what would your kind of your takeaway be for the most important thing that somebody could do?
The most important deliverable or the most important purpose? Because
I'm going to give you the.
For purpose.
Why don't you take a two part answer? I'll give you that liberty.
I mean, for purpose, obviously, it's understanding your why. Why are you doing this? It's not just to make money. What's going to be different? What are you hoping to achieve? And sometimes that's not always answered unless you're having the conversation in conjunction with marketing and the
or you
designers.
might have a ethereal kind of answer, but you haven't really hit the nail on the head yet.
Right.
And I've heard people say it in another like real estate nerdy term, like there's no there.
Yeah,
right? Like people
exactly.
haven't quite they built a big shiny building, but they didn't quite hit it, right? You can tell that they swung and missed at a piece of it.
Yeah, that's right. I think that there is very important, and helping to define that and how to communicate that through, is it imagery? Is it through communications? Is it through a video? Through the logo, through the taglines and leasing, brochure or digital brochure or whatever it is. You have to make that understandable to not just tenants, but consumers ultimately as well. Why does someone want to be there? And, making it understandable, also relatable in an emotional way. Because, for a leasing brochure, you may be taking it to a national retailer that doesn't know Charlotte at all. And then once you get to the built environment, then why do consumers want to be there and spend their time? Because they've only got 2 hours of free time on a Saturday.
That's really helpful. Do me a favor, tell everybody how they can connect with you, how they can find out more information about your company. If they have questions, how can they reach you? Give everybody just a little snippet of how they can connect with you.
Sure. It's yellowduckmarketing.com is our website. And I'm online everywhere, obviously. LinkedIn and Twitter's wide open. Julianne McCollum, because no one knows how to spell my last name, which is why I didn't name the company after myself.
Well, thank you again for joining me. I learned a lot. I love talking marketing. Especially with somebody that is kind of a Jedi level as opposed to a Padawan level like I am. So I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come and meet and chat marketing with me.
Thanks so much, Adam.